so you know.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Well, welcome again to Enjoy the Water webinar. We're going to get started now. And a few notes on how to interact on this webinar in case you haven't been on one before. You should see a Q&A box or Q&A button. And if you have questions at any time during the presentation, feel free to add a question in there. And our speakers are going to handle them either as they come up in the Q&A box, or we're going to take questions at the end. So please feel free to do that. If you have a comment, you can also use the chat. The Q&A box is a little bit easier for us to manage. If you see a question very similar to yours in the Q&A box, go ahead and upvote that, and that'll let us know that more than one person's interested in the topic. So we're also recording the webinar, and that will be available on our YouTube channel. We're going to share that link at the end of the presentation, but also send you a follow-up email with that link as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Barbara Silva from the City of Fremont. She's just going to give us a little background on the Clean Water Program, who's hosting this webinar today.
Hello, I'm Barbara Silva with the City of Fremont, and I wanted to share a little bit about the Clean Water Program. We also shorten it and call it the program. The program empowers residents in Alameda County to protect their local creeks, wetlands, and the bay by providing expert information and practical guidance on how to prevent water pollution during everyday activities. Among our many free resources, such as the one you're watching today, a webinar, are publications with practical advice, reports on water quality related issues, as well as maps of local creeks and watersheds. The program also offers community stewardship grants, volunteer opportunities, and community action. Like cleaning up a local creek, many of you might have been involved in Coastal Cleanup Day recently. That was often spearheaded by our local agencies. The Clean Water Program is comprised of agencies from around the county. The program facilitates local compliance with the Federal Clean Water Act, as well as regulations designed to prevent water pollution. Over its 20-year history, the program has become a respected authority among regulators and businesses and trusted allies among environmentalists. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We have a great lineup of speakers for you today from organizations such as East Bay Regional Parks District, Latino Outdoors, Friends of Sausal Creek, and I Heart Oakland Alameda Estuary. To give us an overview of today's presentation as well as some background information, but first I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Jennifer Stern from the City of Oakland.
Thank you, Lisa. As you said, I'm Jennifer Stern. I'm a watershed program specialist from the City of Oakland, and I'm currently on Ohlone land in Berkeley. And I'm excited to host this webinar today and welcome you all as we take a journey following the water in Alameda County as it flows from the hills through our freshwater lakes and creeks and to the estuary in the bay. And one note about the estuary, the Oakland estuary is the Oakland estuary, the San Leandro Bay, and the San Francisco Bay are all estuaries. And since we are going to be using this word later in our presentation, I thought I would just help define it for some of you that are not familiar with the term. An estuary is a partially enclosed coastal body of water with one or more freshwater streams flowing into it and an open connection to the ocean. And estuaries form a transition zone between that salt water and that fresh water, and that the mixing that happens between the fresh and salt water provides high levels of nutrients, both in the water and in the sediment, making estuaries among the most productive natural habitats in the world. So you'll get a lot of fish, a lot of marine life, a lot of freshwater and saltwater species. So just a note about estuaries. We can move on. Thanks, Lisa. And stormwater, as it's noted here, we are talking not only about enjoying the water today, but about protecting the water. So what we do on trails and beaches and roads is all connected to the water along its path. And rain and wind can carry whatever is on our sidewalks, whether that be trash or other pollutants, sidewalks, roads, and trails into storm drains. And that pollution that gets into the storm drain flows directly to our creeks, uh, our estuaries, wetlands, and the bay. So pollution, as I noted, such as trash, can sicken or kill wildlife, and it can damage the health of the bay. Luckily, as these little kids are showing here, there's a lot we can do to protect our waterways, and from our homes to the bay, and keep them healthy for all to enjoy. And we're excited to have 4 amazing community groups here today to take us on a journey to help us enjoy and protect our waterways. Each group is going to share more about what they do, take us to a part of the local Alameda County watershed, and show ways that people can explore, enjoy, and protect our local lakes, creeks, and estuaries. So at the end, we'll have time for a few questions. So please add your questions to the Q&A section or the chat. And we prefer the Q&A section. So, and we'll have time to get to those at the end. We'll also share where you can find more information about these wonderful local groups, as well as other places to enjoy on our website. So let's get started. We'll start in the East Bay Hills for this watershed journey, and our first presenter is James Wilson from the East Bay Regional Park District.
Great. Good evening, Jennifer. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is James Wilson. I go by he, him pronouns, and I'm the supervising naturalist with the district's mobile education unit that delivers programs all over our 2 counties. Today, I'm calling in from Marinas, California, the ancestral land of the Karkeen tribal group. The East Bay Regional Park District includes over 125,000 acres within 73 regional parks, recreation areas, wilderness, shorelines, preserves, and land-based areas between Alameda and Contra Costa County. Within all those great land spaces, there are 31 regional inner park trails, 1,300 miles of trails within the district just on the dirt, 235 campsites. There are 11 freshwater swimming areas and disabled access swimming pools. We have 40 fishing docks and 3 bay fishing piers and 8 freshwater fishing lakes. Just a fun fact too, we have over 2,000 picnic tables and 1,000 reservable group picnic tables for big family groups. And amongst those 2 counties, we also have 10 interpretive education centers. The lands of the East Bay Regional Park District fall within the territories of a diverse and resilient group of indigenous people who are descendants from the Ohlone, Bay Miwok, and Delta Yurok ancestral tribes. As you enjoy your visits in our regional parks, please join us in honoring with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded this place in time since memorial and continue to remain deeply connected to it today. This evening, I'm going to focus on the headwaters of the Alameda Creek watershed, starting in the hills of the Ohlone Regional Wilderness and Encinal Regional Wilderness. Next slide, please. So the Alameda Creek headwater drainages are vast. It's over 660 square miles that drain all of Alameda Creek watershed. It's the largest watershed in the Bay Area, draining roughly the southern 2/3 of the East Bay. It extends as far south as Mount Hamilton, north to Mount Diablo, and east to the Altamont Hills in Livermore, and west to the San Francisco Bay, of course. And the Livermore Valley itself is comprised of 5 unique watersheds. There's the Encinal Regional, within the Encinal Regional Wilderness and Recreation Area, we have the Arroyo Mocho watershed, the Arroyo Hondo watershed, the Arroyo del Val watershed, and the San Antonio Creek watershed. That water that we see in that bottom photograph is the Murrieta Falls, which is 11 miles in Encinal, which will travel downstream and meet the bay in Hayward. It's also one of the only inner bay streams that still has a native steelhead salmon migration. And hopefully come heavy spring rains in the next next year, right around the Hayward Bartweir near Quarry Lakes Regional Recreation Area, sometimes you have a chance to see these amazing fish. And I've personally had the honor to help rescue some of the fish and move them upstream into Alameda Creek. Next slide, please. So there's many activities you can enjoy in the Ohlone and Encinal Regional Wilderness areas. including picnicking, hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding, camping, boating, and more. These few pictures are from our district's annual backpacking trip with our adventure crew to Sunol Regional Wilderness. At Sunol Regional Wilderness, we have 7 unique backpacking sites, but there's also wilderness trails, car camping, group camps, and the convenience camping. I'll also discuss some of the highlights and seasonal happenings in some of these parks. So for Sunol Ohlone Wilderness, the Ohlone Wilderness Trail permit is required for each person ages 12 and over. And at this time, the permit's only available to purchase online or by calling the reservations department. So please purchase them well in advance of your planned trip, and so that we can mail you the permit. We no longer allowed to sell permits at the Sunol, Del Valle, or Coyote Hills Visitor Center at this time. My favorite times to go visit are spring and autumn, when you can plan around the weather, but also March is a wonderful time to go with the anticipation of wildflowers. I've personally been out there with our adventure crew kids and get to see the painted lady butterfly migration over the Sunol Regional Wilderness, and it's really amazing. So I think it dropped in the link will be one of our backpacking and activity information from the district. Next slide, please. So while you're out enjoying these 2 places, be sure while you're camping to check ahead of time of the current conditions. Del Valle has a brand new visitor center as well, and they often host campfire programs, so that's something to catch. You can call 510-544-3146 to see what's happening, and that's the visitor center's phone number, and their opening hours are Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 2. Some trips from the campgrounds while going out anywhere, or some tips for at the campgrounds or going out anywhere, at least in the wilderness, is to store trash away from animals, either in your car or definitely in the trash can. Raccoons and ravens and even skunks are known to come out even in the middle of the day and rob people's picnic baskets. So we encourage people to leave these places as you find them. And oftentimes wilderness areas don't have trash receptacles, especially while you're on a boat. It's hard to find a trash can. So please practice pack it in, pack it out. One of my tips is to bring an empty peanut butter jar that's nice and clean, and you can put all your things in there. And of course, bring a bandana, because there's always 1,000 uses for a bandana, and you can even hold all your crumbs in it. Next slide, please. So the East Bay Regional Park District is proud to be an official member of the National Leave No Trace organization. And there's 7 simple principles to leave no trace. Plan ahead and be prepared. So asking all those questions that I may have mentioned. Traveling on durable surfaces, and that just basically means hiking on the trail and staying on trail so that you don't cause erosion. Dispose of waste properly, so some of those tips I mentioned, and leave what you find. And of course, bring home all the memories you can. And minimize campfire impacts. Surprisingly, a lot of people think you can burn trash, but that's not a great idea. So making sure that you have a campfire responsibly. And of course, respect wildlife and be considerate of others. So these Leave No Trace principles were reprinted with permission from the Leave No Trace organization. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to tell you about these places. And I hope to see you out there in your regional parks. And I'll pass it along to Jennifer for our next speaker.
Thank you, James. Continuing on our watershed journey, we'll look more at the lakes in the East Bay. And our next speaker is Veronica Miranda from Latino Outdoors.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer. My name is Veronica Miranda. I'm from Latino Outdoors, and my pronouns are she, her, and ella. I'm one of the program coordinators here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm currently calling in from Ohlone Lands in San Francisco, California. A little info on Latino Outdoors. Latino Outdoors is a Latino-led organization that creates outdoor programming for Latino communities nationally, but we welcome all folks from ethnicities and races to join our outings. We hope to inspire and connect people to the outdoors through outings held by our volunteers all across the country. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we offer an array of activities from car camping to day hikes and fishing, naturalist walks, stewardship projects, and tide pool explorations are just a few to name of the things that we do here in the Bay Area. Next slide, please. Today, I will be sharing some info about Anthony Chabot Regional Park, which is located in Castro Valley, and it's on the traditional lands of the Ohlone, Muwekma, and Chochenyo. Next slide, please. So there are many activities you can enjoy at Anthony Chabot Regional Park. Boating, fishing, hiking, and picnicking are very popular activities here, as well as bike riding and camping. And they even have equestrian trails here. And there are over 70 miles of trails, including an ADA-friendly paved path that's adjacent to the lake. Next slide, please. So picnicking. There are 6 picnic areas available to reserve. 3 of the picnic sites they're ADA friendly and the sites can accommodate anywhere from 50 to 200 people. And all the sites offer barbecue grills and all have some type of shade. And there are also a few that are first come, first serve available. And you can reserve them by calling 1-888 EB Parks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so boating and fishing. So at Lake Chabot, you can rent pedal boats. They have single and double kayak boats. I'm sorry, not kayaks. They have rowboats, electric motorboats, and patio boats, or you can bring your own kayak or canoe. And you can learn more about the information and fees at ebparks.com. So my husband and I have actually, we've rented some of the electric motorboats and we've gone out to the coves to go fish. And some of the coves, they're not accessible by walking. So it's nice because sometimes catfish like to hide out in the coves and you can have some success by catching them there. But you have to rent one of the boats in order to get out there. But I highly recommend renting one because it's really, really fun. And if you go right before sunset, the lake, it just, it glimmers and it's really, really pretty. But yeah, I highly recommend renting one. So some things to note about fishing. So everyone over the age of 16 is required to have a California state fishing license to fish. And there's also a $5 EB Parks fee to fish in Lake Chabot. And you can also get day use licenses and they can be purchased at the Marina store, which is located right next to the dock. And then be sure to look at the rules and limitations on size and the type of fish that can be caught and consider reporting any of your catches. The lake is stocked seasonally with different fish such as catfish and rainbow trout. And currently in stock is the catfish from Mount Lassen. And so if you're ever there on a day where you see there's a big truck that comes in and they hook it up into this pipe and all the fish start going down into the water. So you can see the different sizes that are released into the lake. And it's really, really cool. Let me see. So one thing to note is there is bass, black and striped in the lake, but they don't stock them. So one thing that the lake does ask, the park does ask, if you do catch them, if you can practice catch and release, because they don't stock them, so they hope that they can repopulate. Always look out for fish advisories to know which fish are safe to consume. And the only live bait allowed are worms and night crawlers. And then it's called the East Bay Parks Anglers Edge newsletter, and it has a good source of information on the lakes throughout the East Bay Parks. Next slide, please. Okay, camping. So Anthony Chabot Regional Park offers 53 family-friendly sites. So these are the sites that you can drive up to. And then they offer 10 sites that are walk-to sites. So this means that you can have to carry all your gear over to your site. And there are 12 RV sites with full hookups. There's also 7 group campsites that can accommodate anywhere from 35 to 300 people. And all sites have a table with a fire ring. And campsites can be reserved by calling 1-888 EB Parks, and they can be reserved up to 12 weeks in advance. Next slide, please. Okay, so how you can help. So you can help keep the waters clean by packing out all your trash that you bring, anything that is consumed, anything that's not consumable. either bring, a small trash bag, or if you have anything like any containers from anything that you consumed, you can always pack all your trash back in that and then just take it to the trash receptacles. I would consider, picking up any equipment or waste that others might have left behind. Micro trash is micro trash such as like bottle caps or broken glass, or those single-use wrapping papers, wrap papers from snacks. Those are the most common items that end up in our waters, and we want to try to keep our waters clean by not, by trying to pick any of that up and put it in the trash. Also, make sure that your fishing equipment is set up properly, and do not use any lead weights. And avoid dumping any liquids in the lakes, such as beverages or like water from coolers that you might bring out, because they can spread bacteria, and we want to keep the lakes clean. Next slide, please. You can learn more about Latino Outdoors at our website, www.latinooutdoors.com, or through our social media channels. If you use Instagram, the Bay Area channel is LO San Francisco Bay Area, and the main page is Latino Outdoors, or through Facebook. If you do a search for Latino Outdoors SF Bay Area, it'll take you to the local chapter, and then the main page is Latino Outdoors, and we're also on Twitter for those of you that like to tweet things at Latino Outdoors. And thank you for having me, and I look forward to hearing the next panelists. So back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Veronica. That was great. It makes me want to go fishing at Lake Chabot. And I've never done that before. So that would be so fun. And so continuing on our watershed journey, we're going to visit a special creek in Alameda County. Our next speaker is Jeff Stevens from the Friends of Sausal Creek.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. And thanks, Veronica, very much for talking about both Lake Chabot and Anthony Chabot. Both places have special place in my heart. Done a lot of running around Lake Chabot, and my son actually worked at the kiosk there, the campground kiosk at Anthony Chabot, and checking in campers for a couple summers. So like those two places a lot. And so as Jennifer said, I'm from Friends of Sausal Creek. And for those of you who don't know who we are, we're actually celebrating 25 years here in Oakland. We're a community-based organization, and we work to restore, maintain, and protect an important local watershed in Oakland on the traditional lands of the Ohlone people. And we have several different program areas that we've developed over those 25 years, including outdoor recreation, just enjoying natural areas. There's trails close to home here in Oakland. We have a pretty robust citizen science with trout, which I'm going to talk about more, surprisingly, and migratory birds. Also, before COVID, a lot with outdoor education, and over 1,000 students out to the watershed and youth visits per year. And then we also have a lot of people volunteering at different sites across, and a native plant nursery that I'll mention at the end on city-owned land in Joaquin Miller Park. So next slide. So for those who may not know exactly where Sausal Creek is, so the watershed extends from Fern Ravine up in the hills of the Oakland Hills, in Joaquin Miller Park, city of Oakland Park, down to the Oakland Estuary at Fruitvale Bridge. And then also Shepherd Creek and Palo Seco Creek join. You may have heard those names before too. Those two join right at about Highway 13, and then it forms the main stem of Sausal Creek right around where the golf course driving range is there below Highway 13. And much of the upper watershed is natural in Joaquin Miller Park, and in Palo Seco Creek, there's redwoods. It's pretty amazing. And the creek's visible, while much of the lower watershed flows through pipes under the streets. There through the Fruitvale and out to the estuary. So I'll talk about that. Next slide, please. So there are actually many activities that you can enjoy just by visiting different parts of Sausal Creek. One of my personal favorites is just to get out and walk the trails, observe the creek. And it's pretty amazing when you think of an urban creek like this, that in the summer where there's low flows, but still there's trout. And then you'd be amazed in the wintertime how much water actually flows through the creek. And it looks like a very natural stream in the high Sierras or something. One of the things too is with all the alder trees and others in the watershed there, is just to spot new birds. And every time I venture out, I see a new bird species that's passing through the watershed. Recently, just in the picture in the slide, we spotted yellow warblers in Diamond Park near the tot lot, and in the alder trees, and they're eating aphids. And surprisingly, the warblers are only here in the fall, and they head all the way down to the tropics in the winter. So these are the kind of birds that we get passing through. And during the last 18 months of the pandemic, we've all appreciated that nature is not that far away. And we definitely encourage everyone to get out there and enjoy this gem that's in our backyard in Alameda County and in Oakland. So either walking with children, hiking with teens, or even running with your four-legged friends on leash, of course. So next slide. Thanks, Lisa. And so speaking of, I mentioned Diamond Park and the warblers, you may actually be able to spot native rainbow trout in the creek. James mentioned about steelhead coming up from the bay and up Alameda Creek. These rainbow trout that we have here in Sausal Creek, they're actually landlocked. They can't get out to the bay, or they would be steelhead. But we've done a lot of research on them, and they're actually just a native population of rainbow trout that are in the creek. And one of the best spots to see them is at the El Centro trailhead. They're able to survive even during the dry summer months because of some of the large pools that form there near El Centro trailhead, where you can actually spot them. And they could be a foot or so long, 10 to 12 inches, pretty surprising. And Sausal Creek's one of the few urban creeks in California to support a genetically wild population. It truly is an Oakland native. But obviously, given the rare nature of the trout, fishing is not allowed, and signs are posted because people do actually ask that question. So next slide. Another great adventure, especially for kids, is to visit the Bridgeview Pollinator Garden located in the Sausal Creek watershed in the Oakmore neighborhood, kind of near Rockies Market, kind of that area is the Bridgeview trailhead. And you may say, well, why create a pollinator garden? What is a pollinator garden? And so, but as probably many of the participants on this webinar have probably read, native bees are on the decline, and loss of habitat is the principal reason. So although diseases of the honeybee have crossed over, and honeybee diseases have crossed over to native bees, which is impacting them. So, and today, the garden at Bridgeview it's a successful refuge for many types of pollinators. And those pictures in the slide deck are actually taken by Mei Chen, one of our dedicated volunteers that works tirelessly at the pollinator garden. Her photos are amazing, and her knowledge of the local bees and insects it's great. It's a beautiful park for the surrounding community, and we hope you take your family and look for the pollinators and get your kids counting and logging them. So next slide. So there's a lot of ways you can help with our creeks generally, and with Sausal Creek, to keep it clean and healthy while enjoying the area. So if you have dogs, which many of us do, make sure to keep them on a leash, and of course pick up after your pets. You can also pick up litter along the trails if you bring a bag with you, or if you take James's advice, bring a clean, empty peanut butter container, and you can put all your trash in there and then take it home and toss it in your trash. There's also some really fun volunteer opportunities as well, helping with the restoration of the watershed, creek cleanups, native plant education, and nursery propagation. helping with school groups, etc. One final plug for those that are really interested in the nursery and native plants, because we're coming up on rainy season and it's the right time of year to plant native plants in our local area, is that Friends of Sausal Creek is actually coming up on its 16th annual native plant sale, which it'll be the second year in a row it'll be online because of COVID. But if you go to our website, it's happening October 22nd through 26th, and all the proceeds help fund, basically just gets rolled right back into more native plants in the watershed and with trails and other things like that. So on that, I think I will turn it back over to Jennifer and for our next speaker. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for sharing all about Friends of Sausal Creek. And yeah, we hope people come check out the watershed. Along our watershed journey, we're going to now visit the Oakland Alameda Estuary. And our next speaker is Mary Spicer from iHeart Oakland Alameda Estuary.
Hi, I'm Mary Spicer, and I'm from iHeart Oakland Alameda Estuary. I'm calling in from Alameda on Ohlone land, and just want to say thank you for being here today. I'm super excited to connect all over the Oakland Alameda Estuary and a little bit beyond today. iHeart, we host 2 to 3 on the water and on the land garbage cleanups a year. We typically gather anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of garbage off the shores of the Oakland Estuary and get it into the garbage truck where it belongs. We have a super uplifting, positive community that comes out to support the cleanups, and I'll share a little bit about that in a little while, but I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the estuary and all the great resources that are there. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is the Oakland Alameda Estuary, and with all the presenters, that just gave us a great example of the lakes and rivers and streams that all lead down into the estuary, and as Jennifer had defined the estuary, where the clear water meets the salt water, and there's a lot of abundant life. We definitely have that here at our Oakland Estuary, and the Lake Merritt Channel is open now, opened up in 2013, so we're getting all of that good fresh water running out again in the tidal flow happening. Next slide, please. There are many activities you can partake in. There is paddling, rowing, boats and yacht clubs, a lot of swimming, especially during COVID. There's a lot of swimmers out there now, biking, hiking, and walking. Next slide, please. I created this map just because I wanted to give you a sense of some really great sites along the estuary, and then 2 in Alameda. Middle Harbor Shoreline Park is a really great place to have, just go down there. It's a very quiet place. There's a lot of amazing birds to see there, and access to the shore. We're going to talk about Jack London Aquatic Center and the Grand Street Boat Ramp in Alameda, both on the Oakland Estuary. And then Tidewater Boating Center is just another pretty not overrun boat ramp. It's got great access to the water. We're also going to cover Encinal Beach and Robert Crown. And so let's just start that journey. Next slide. Grand Street Boat Ramp is right at the end of Grand Street in Alameda. It has really easy access to get your stand-up paddle, your kayaks, or your boat in the water. There's a dragon boat team that's anchored there. There's also a hose for fresh water to clean off your boat and your feet when you get out of the water, and really clean bathrooms there. Go ahead and next slide, please. I put this in there because I really love going out on the water at dusk or even at night on full moons. And it's really a great way to get out, and when it gets quieter at night and you can hear more of nature, there's more space with the full moon beaming down on you, and you're out in the estuary. What's great about the estuary is there's enough light so you can know where you are and see where you are. Of course, when I go out with friends, I put lights on my body and lights on my kayak, just to make sure that if there's boats out there, they know where we are. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Then I thought we'd head across the water from Grant Street to Jack London Aquatic Center Estuary Park. There's a great, the Bay Trail runs through that area. So that's a great trail to follow the estuary, the shoreline. It's a good resource to check out for sure. There's a good Oakland trail to walk or bike. And the estuary park there is also a great field to go ahead and walk your dog and kick a soccer ball around. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite docks. It's such a great dock. We actually use it for the cleanups, the on the water cleanups that we do. This is one of the cleanups. You can see all the kayakers going out to the beaches to get garbage. It's a very large public dock. Lately, there's been a lot of swimmers there recently, so it's a good place to hop in the water and take a swim. Just stay close to the shores. There's on-site bathrooms, pretty new, pretty clean. And one of my favorite things I love about this is it's a home base for so many teams. Next slide, please. The East Bay Rowing Club, they are a community rowing club, which means anybody, the whole community can come and join this team, which I love. They offer junior and also adult paddle, and they even have master and senior masters. So that means you can be really old and still be out there rowing and having a good time. They actually partake in our cleanups. They provide the boats, the skiffs that go and pick up the hundreds of pounds of garbages that we clear from the beaches. So I really want to just include them. They're a great community team. They give financial support, and they'll train you. So you don't need to have experience. Go ahead and give me the next slide, please. And then I just wanted to include the whale boats. They are so much a part of the Oakland Estuary, and they kind of fit the energy of the Oakland Estuary. Bay Area Whale Boat Rowing Association, the link's there. This is the Road Warriors. I actually was on this team for a little while, and if you want to build your quads, it's a really great group to get connected to. Again, they will teach you how to row, and you don't need to be experienced at all. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I really wanted to give a shout out to the Oakland's amazing bat rays. They are all, when I'm out paddling, they're really at the shores of the estuary. And since the Lake Merritt Channel opened, they've been seen in the lake a lot. And I think that's really something we should celebrate. Next slide, please. So we're gonna leave the Oakland Estuary now, and we're gonna move on over to Encinal Beach. Just wanted to give you a little bit of bay nature. The Encinal Beach is in Alameda. It has the beach, a great rock wall. That's a lot of fun to actually go out and check out nature. You can fish there, stand up paddle, kayak, swim, boat, and also just lay on the beach. There's new bathrooms there, and they do offer water. There's also a new boat ramp there. Next slide, please. I wanted to just, because that wall there is out there, it's almost, I see it like an underwater freeway where the fish stop and hang out. And because the fish are there, there's also a lot of other water activity there. And when we paddle out in the winter, you can come into the winter feeding frenzies, and you can actually go to the wall out there and see some of this actually happening. There's the large rock wall, which you can walk out on and have the experience of all these birds dive bombing and the fish coming up and the harbor seals touching your stand-up paddles or kayaks. And it's just a really amazing nature situation. Next slide, please. And then I wanted to just introduce you to our favorite dolphin, Kaimi. Kaimi showed up in Encinal probably about 3.5 years ago. She was initially out at a bell buoy in the middle of the bay, and then found her way over to the rock wall where it looked like she would sleep there. And the great thing is when we'd go out and paddle, she'd come in our wakes and paddle with us. And eventually a pod came and got Kaimi, which was great. But they hung out for about 2 years, and it was such a special experience to be in our bay and have dolphins. Just as we would just float around, they would float around, they would swim around with us. So really just wanted to connect that special nature to this presentation. Go ahead in the next slide, please. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about is the snoozing sea lion. Sometimes we'll paddle to the middle of the bay, and the sea lions have been started to move a little closer to Alameda. I've seen them at Crown and Crab Cove. This was a juvenile that was just out snoozing out there. I love the sea lions. I think they're loud, curious, and pretty territorial. So I just give them a lot of respect. Next slide, please. The last team I just wanted to give a shout out to is Outrigger Okalani. Encinal is their home base. The Estuary has the rowing clubs. This is a paddle club, so they will actually teach anybody to paddle Sunday mornings. If you just connect with them and tell them you're coming, they'll get you on a boat and teach you how to paddle, and it's free. All of these learning things are free, and so it's just a great way to get out, meet the water community, connect to nature, learn more about the water. So I just really wanted to express that. And next slide, please. I just wanted to give you a little bit of images. We have the outrigger going out of the Oakland Estuary. We have them paddling to Treasure Island, and then the orange OC1 is the back channel of the San Leandro Bay, leading right into the Oakland Estuary. And that is a really easy place to paddle. It's pretty calm back there, and you will see tons of bat rays and the tiger sharks out there. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show this picture. The whole base in Alameda is being redone, which means there's an opportunity for us to have a lot more water access. This is one of the projects that they're developing. And on the Oakland Estuary side, I really wanted to just get this out there because I think it's important that people that care about nature and the earth really know what's happening, what's being developed. So your voice is in these projects. It's important that you give your insight before these things get made. So please do some research on all the new stuff in Alameda. I also heard there might be a new dock going in at the Oakland port, which is a whole nother great thing that we should keep on our radars. The next slide, please. The last spot on our tour is Crown Beach, Alameda. I just put it on there for you. There's stand-up paddle, kayaks, lots of swimming, windsurf, kite surf, and foil. Next slide, please. I put this in because there's a great bike trail along shoreline. You can check into the San Francisco Bay Trail. I put that resource in there as well. You can go all the way down that trail and go up the Bay Farm pedestrian bridge, take a right, stay on the San Francisco Bay Trail, keep going, you'll have water access, the water shoreline, beautiful long flat trail, great for families walking and biking. And if you do a round trip from Crown, it's about a 10-mile, 12-mile bike ride or hike. So it's just a really great resource. Next slide, please. And the one thing, the reason I put Crown Beach in here, because if you want to learn to swim, it's a really great place to learn to swim. It's very shallow, and it's very shallow, very far out there. So it's just a great place to learn to stand up paddle and learn to swim. Whereas in the Oakland Estuary, there's not too many beaches to get into. So next slide, please. And then, of course, windsurfing, kite surfing, and foiling, the latest water trend, stand-up paddle. It's all here at Crown Beach. Go ahead and give the next slide. And then I wanted just to take you back to I Heart Oakland Alameda Estuary. This is a picture I took at a high tide when I was out stand-up paddling once. And this is one of the hard to reach beaches where garbage accumulates. It's really hard to get to these beaches by foot, and that's why we started doing the beach cleanups. Dumping, storm drain runoff, and the lack of resources for homeless all contribute to the urban garbage that pollute our shores. Next slide, please. We started, I was out dragon boating out of Jack London Aquatic Center and was talking to the team as we were paddling, and we were seeing these eggs living in our human squalor. So we just started to get the paddle people together and started to go to these beaches and just do cleanups on our own. Next slide, please. And out of that grew I Heart Oakland Alameda Estuary Garbage Go-Getters, eco-aware. And like I said, we get 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of garbage a year as where we are now. I'd love to expand that. We're looking to do that. And we'd also love to have you join us. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to give you a few quick pictures of the cleanups and the community. Next slide. This is the one we just did for California Coastal Day at Jack London Aquatic Center, where we have East Bay Row Club, California Canoe and Kayak, and the whaleboat community come out and support our cleanups. Next slide, please. How you can help join or start your own local litter cleanups. If you see any litter, just grab it. Reduce single-use plastic. Plastic is really endless in our waters. Use reusables, and the best thing that I think you can do is locally is just clean your local storm drains. The waters haven't hit yet. We haven't had rain yet, but after a strong rain, you can just see tons and tons of garbage coming from the storm drains going into the estuary, into the bay, and into the ocean. So if you can grab your garbage from your local storm drains, which are the drains right in your streets, you're going to really be helping us so much. I'd like to really thank you for joining me today, and thank you for joining us on our watershed journey from the hills to the lakes, creeks, and to the bay. We hope that you get out and enjoy the waterful world. And I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's so amazing what you've built and the community coming together to really take care of the water, protect the water, and enjoy the water. So thank you. And thank you to all of our wonderful community groups for taking us on a journey through some of our local Alameda County waterful places. We hope you enjoyed it. We encourage you to visit the Clean Water Program website, which is on your screen now, especially the Enjoy the Water webpage. On the webpage, you'll find a map with locations of parks and areas where you can enjoy the water. Okay. See here. Okay, great. Okay, we're on the watershed slide. Next, I just wanted to also share that the Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District has a wonderful resource on their website where you can explore your local watershed with the Explore Watershed Interactive tool, and that's linked above. The link is there on the slide. Also, we'll put it in the chat. So definitely check it out. Find out. You can go on there and find out which watershed you're in. And one other note, kind of related to what Mary was talking about with the storm drains too. We want to keep any trash out of storm drains. Also, while you're out enjoying the water, if you see spills or illegal dumping or sewer breaks, anything that's contributing pollution to the water, please report these to help protect water quality. If you see a spill happening, call 911. And if the problem is not immediate, you can contact a non-emergency number for your area. And these contacts are listed on our Report a Spill page under the Get Involved tab on our webpage. So if you are just going to the webpage homepage, you would look under Get Involved and then Report a Spill. And we'll be putting that in the chat as well.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. We're just closing out now. We can take a few questions, but this is how you can keep in touch with Clean Water Program. We have an e-newsletter, which you can sign up for at our website. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The recording for this webinar will be on YouTube, and we'll be sending out all the links that we put in the chat. We're going to add them to our follow-up link, which you should get tomorrow, so sometime tomorrow. We do have all the groups that you presented here today, and some others are also on our volunteer page, so you can find out if you want to get more involved or find a group near you to do that. Okay, so if you have any questions, I know there were a few, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A. If anyone, or a comment, anything people want to discuss? Any additional questions? Some of the ones that were answered about blue-green algae, I thought that might be interesting. I don't know if you want to say this out loud, James, but I was kind of curious too. Someone had asked about blue-green algae. Is it the new normal? You're muted, yeah.
Sorry about that. Is it the new normal? Yeah, it's hard to say what normal was, but blue-green algae has always been around, but there are a couple different factors that come into play when you have a bloom where you have an incredible amount of blue-green algae and then it dies off all at once. And then that's when we get the toxic chemicals that can affect people. So in that answer, I gave a lot more details. I would say that, definitely drought is a considering factor, but there are some human factors involved too. So in going to one of those places to which you may be worried or concerned, definitely check the Park District's website, and we keep updated on what's happening in the parks. And I put actually the most current conditions typically come out on these Thursday afternoons. So that is of like just about an hour ago. I put into the answer. So you can find out more information on the Park District's website. And yeah, we're finding it in Alameda Creek now when there's low water flows. And of course, yeah, lakes and reservoirs.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any other questions. A couple of thank yous. It was really great. I learned a lot. I feel like I want to join a rowing club now. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm so heartened to find out that you don't have to have a lot of experience to get out there on the water. I think that's so great. I hope all of you were inspired to try something new or visit a new place and enjoy the water. And it's right here in our backyard, and really, really cherish it. It's something so special that we have near us, and it's worth protecting, it's worth enjoying. And again, thank you very much for attending.